What's up guys? So in this video we are going to be building a fully responsive multi-step form using React and CSS, and this is a part one of two-part series that we'll be doing, and we'll be focusing on the design, which involves implementing just the JSX and CSS in this video. The next video where we are going to implement the functionality will be out in a week's time. But if you are watching this in the future, I'll leave a link to the video, or the video will be popping up in the card somewhere. And the design for this project is from Frontend Mentor. I've talked about Frontend Mentor a lot on my channel. And basically, Frontend Mentor is just a platform where you can enhance your coding skills by building reward projects. And this project is quite advanced, which means it's kind of technical. It's not really straightforward. I promise you that if you stick with the two-part series, you are going to learn a lot about React and styling with CSS and other cool stuff as well. So let's take a quick look at what we'll be building. So if I click on this next step right here, you see we get some error messages. So, and the same thing, I can't go to this second step except I have this fade out. So I can now go to the next step and I can go back to the previous step, either with this button or with this progress bar button, anyone you choose to. So if I go to the next step, and the same thing, if I click on next step and I have not selected anything, it's going to show an error message. And most of this stuff was I just brought it up because it was not on the design. So I can say I want this advanced, and I can toggle between yearly and monthly. So you can see that this changes as I toggle, and I get 2 months free rather. So let's just stick with this, or let's just stick with 90. So if I click on next step, I get directed to the next form when I can select different add-on. So I think this is 90, so this will be 100. So let me just pick only this one. So you can see that this is the total step. So basically it adds all as we are progressing. So we get 100 right here, which is in years. If I change this to months, this will be 9, and automatically this will be month as well, which is $1, and this now will be what, 10. So I can click on the next step, but before I do that, I can also refresh the page, and all the things I selected will still be there because it's been stored on local storage. So now I can now go to the next step, which says thank you, which then gives us this confirmation message or thank you message. And again, let me refresh this, and it's also responsive on mobile. So if I change this to mobile view, let me bring this up a bit so you can see it's the same thing. You can see toggle between the months and the years, and you can go back and select what you want. So basically this is what we are going to be building, and without further ado, let's just dive right into the video. All right, so I have VS Code opened with a folder called multi-step form-yt, and I have an assets folder that I've already brought in that basically has all the images that I'll be using. And again, the Github repo to this part 1 series will be in the description so that you can follow along easily. So I can just open my terminal with Ctrl J or Ctrl and tilde, and I will say npm create vids at latest, and I'm going to create it on this folder by using this period sign. So if you don't have any folder open on yours, you won't see this, but I have. So it's asking me if I want to cancel operations, so I'll just ignore the files and continue. Then we'll be using React, and for the variant we'll just be using JavaScript. We won't be using TypeScript. And now we can just run npm I to install all the dependencies that will be needing. Alright, the packages has been installed, so I can clear my screen. And before we run the server, I have the Figma files open as well. If you download the challenge, you have access to the Figma files and the CSS files that you need. But I already have them open, and you can see the screens are quite much, but we just work one step at a time, starting from this first step right here. So I'll go to this vit.config, and the default port for vit is 5173, but I just like using port 3000. So I'll say server, and I'll say port, I'll set this to 3000 and save. So I can close this out and run it now. I can see npm run dev, and it should open on port 3000. So this should give us a blank stuff here. So since we're starting from mobile first, which I always encourage you start from, so we just leave this like so. Okay, let me just get rid of the boilerplate code. So for this one, we don't need this app.css file. For the index, we just get rid of everything. Then for this app, we just say RFCE for now. So this is just an extension called EX6 or EX7 snippets. So let me just quickly search for that. ES7. So this one, ES7 React with just snippets. So it gives you this quick snippet that you can quickly just edit. So I'll leave mine up and I'll get rid of that import. And for the index.html, we'll just say multi-step form. And now if you check back, we'll have just this. And I think, okay, yeah, so this is how it should be. So now if we go back to the design, what I love to do, and by the way, this video might be a very long one, so you don't have to rush. You can just go at your own pace. So what I love to do is that I love to go through all the designs, like everything, and see common patterns about all of them, so that it can help me when I want to structure my GXS or HTML. So for this, the screens for like the desktop are quite similar. So we have this progress bar, this entire blue stuff at the left for desktop, while for mobile it's at the top, and the same. So the only things that change is this section right here. And like for this first one now, this go back button is hidden, which is supposed to be so. And we also have this error feeds. So what we do is that I'm going to create a component folder, so that we can, all this is right here, component. This personal info is a component, this select your plan is a component, even this progress bar is a component. So if you are familiar with React, you understand what I'm talking about. So inside this components folder, I'm going to create a form, your JSX, and basically this form is going to contain or hold all these components that we'll be building, because I don't want to structure them individually on this app directory. I just want the form directory to be here, then we can do all the heavy lifting inside this form component. So I'll say RFCE as well, and I go back to the app.gxs and change this to code fragments and passing that form that we just created. So now the form should be here, so we don't have to touch the GXS for now. and can now focus on this form. So the first thing to build on this form is the progress bar. So we are going to start with the progress bar. And if I bring my pen to, so this right here is a div. Then we'll need a div to still hold this entire stuff right here, so that we can add a display of grid later on with this div. So this is what I have in mind. We might also add another div as well, but this works fine for now. So if I go back, I can come to these components right here, and I can now create the progress bar. So I can say progress bar.gxs. And before we populate this progress bar, I quickly want to bring in all the constants. So all these data that we'll be needing. So basically they are static, but we'll still be rendering them kind of in a dynamic form. So I will go to my notepad where I have all this stored, and I think it's from here, I guess. So I will copy from here down to here. I'll just cut it out and go to my code, and still inside my source folder I can create a utils folder, and inside the utils folder I'll create a constants. So say constants.jsx and paste it right here. Again, all this information will be in the Github repo. So I can now close this and come back to this form, and inside this form I'm going to leave this div and give this a class of form container, and inside the form container we'll have another div called container, and we'll have another div with a class of display grid. So I just call this dgrid, but you can still say display grid if you choose to. We'll leave it at dgrid, and inside this display grid we'll have the, sorry about that, it's the autocomplete, and inside this display grid we'll bring in the progress bar, and we might not see it because I don't think we have anything here. So let's close this one out, and we can now bring in the progress bar, and this other place will be for the other page details. So this will hold stuff like the personal info, select your plan, they will all be here. So for the progress bar, we can go right here and get rid of this and give this a class called progress bar. It should be an hyphen though, but let's just leave it like so. I think an hyphen will be better, but anyways, let me just leave it like so. And inside this progress bar we'll create another div to hold all the steps. So let me undo this. So right now we're focusing on this side of things. Ignore this side for now. This is what we're focusing on. So we're writing a code for desktop, but we'll start the styling for mobile. So we need a div to hold the entire progress bar here. Then we'll also have another div to just hold all these steps. So that's what we'll be doing. So we'll say progress bar, and inside this div we'll say progress bar underscore steps, and inside this progress bar steps, since we already have all the data on this constant file, let me just close everything. So we'll start from this one, which is the progress data. So we can say open curly brackets and say progress data, and we'll map over it and say for each progress, then open this and bring in a div and give this a key of progress dots. Let's use the step. I think the step will be enough so that React don't get mad at us. And for this step, I guess I will have to turn on this autocomplete. So just give me a minute, let me turn this off. All right, so it's disabled now. So I can now come right here and give this a class. We'll call this progress bar underscore step, then hyphen info, and we just want to create this ordered list right here. So inside this we can say OL, which stands for ordered list, and we'll just pass in the progress dot step, and let's give this a class of active, and underneath this we create another div with a class of progress bar underscore step, and this time we just call this the text to hold this text right here. So we'll have a span, and we'll call this the progress title. Then for the other subtext, which is your info, h5, call this progress.info. And now I'm having a rethink because this is the main stuff, regardless that this is much bigger. So what I will do is I will change this to a h5, and this will be span. Okay, so I believe this is what we have so far. So if we come right here, we have some errors. Let's refresh this again. So I'm guessing, did we start? Okay, so we'll have to go to these constants and make sure all these stuffs are correct, all the parts. Okay, so I think I know where the issue is coming from. We have two assets folder. I didn't even take notes. I'll delete this one, and I'll just drag this one inside, so like so. And let's check, do we have to restart our server again? Okay, nope. Okay, so we can see all the stuff, which looks really ugly. So before we start styling it, let's just work on the personal info components before we just start styling both of them. So for that, we'll come right here and create the personal info.jxs crfca, get rid of this, and inside this personal info you can see that what is being common with all these components is that it has this header right here, which has this main text and this subtext, the same thing here, the same thing here, and the same thing here. And it also has this footer as well, which is this, and this as well. But for this main one, it doesn't have a go back button. Maybe since we are just implementing the JXS and CSS, we'll add the go back. Then when we get to the functionality, we'll try to fix this. So we'll go back and I'll get rid of this one and give this a class of form step. So this form step class now will be general for all what we'll be doing in each of the step. Then I also add another class. You can also call it a modifier. So we'll call this one step 1. So this step 1 is just to style, do some styling that affects this particular personal info, while this form step is for each of all these steps right here. I don't know if that makes sense. So inside this div, we'll have an header that we just talked about, which means we also need to create a header component, which we just pass like so. And while we are there, let's just create the footer component as well. So get rid of this one, and we're just passing the header. I think, is it headers that we called it? I don't know. Again, let me check. Okay, it's header, not header. So header, yeah, this one. Okay, so underneath this header, we'll populate it in a bit, but for now, let's just come right here and create the, I don't want to call this an actual from because it's not submitting direct. So I'll just put this inside a div and call this input group. And inside this div, we'll create the different fields. So for this first field, this one right here, remember it has an error message. So we can say div again, we can create a div, and this time let's just do it like so. We'll give this a class of error message msg, and we'll just say this field is required. And again, this can still be a p tag if you want to as well. I think this is good for accessibility. We'll use a p tag. Then for the label, we'll just say label, and this will be for the name. This will be name, and we'll also add a break tag so that the name, this label and the input don't go side by side. So just pass the input, and this will be of type text. The ID is going to be name, and the placeholder says e.g. Stephen, what am I doing? Stephen King, if that's what it says, right? Yeah, Stephen King's. So now since we have this, now we can just copy these 2 more times. So say 1, 2, and for this second one, we'll leave this. This will be for email. Say email address. So for this type, you can set it to email. This will be email as well. Then for the placeholder, I think it's still the same Stephen King. So it says Stephen King at lorem.com. Then for the last one, it says phone number. So we say phone number. We'll just leave the type as text for phone number. Then this will be phone, and the HTML4 will be phone as well. Then this will be +1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. All right, cool. So the next thing we need to just add is the footer, which will just be underneath this. So say footer and passing the footer. So we need to open that footer before we can have access to it right here. So footer. All right, cool. So if we check now, this will still be what is showing, except we have to go back to the form, and let's just display it here as well. We can say personal info. Now we can now see the personal info. So if I click on this name, this will highlight the same thing like so. And since this header is just here, let's just add the right data. So what we're going to do for now, we'll change this later on, but we just want to display this main text and subtext. So go to the header components, and I'll give this a class called form step underscore title. Then inside it, we'll pass in an h1 that will be dynamic. So we'll say title, and the p tag as well. Can just call this sub title. So the reason why we're doing this and not using the one from the constants right here is that if we dynamically map over it, it's going to render everything right here. We'll fix this error in a bit. It's going to render all the title right here, which is not what we need right now when we're styling, or rather when we're doing the design. So what does it say is okay, so we need to just make sure we are accepting it as a props from here. Now we can go back to the form, or rather to the personal info, and for this first step we can say the title should be, I think I have to open this constants now and copy this one, paste it right here. Then the subtitle will be this one. I'll paste it right here as well. Okay, so now if we check, we can refresh and this error will be gone. So you can see now we just have personal info. So for the footer, let's just still do something similar. So we'll go to the footer and we'll give this a class of buttons, because we need 2 buttons. And the first button will have a class name of btn. I also have another class again of previous button, and inside this we just say go back, and we'll have another div of basically nothing is going to be inside of this, because the reason we're doing this is when we add flex to these buttons right here. Let me use the design, and there's no item right here, it's automatically going to think this is an element that has something, then it's going to push this. So basically this is why we are just adding this right here. So we can just copy this button down again and change this one to the next step, and this will be next button. So now if we check, we can see the go back and next button. So now we can head back to our index.css file, and the first thing we want to do is to bring all the global styles. So all the global styles are the things that global, and basically it involves the fonts, the colors, and the major resets. So I'll go back to this notepad, and I'll cut all these and I'll paste it right here. So this is the font that we're using. It's from fonts.google. I don't want to go through the stress of going to the website and copying it. You can have access to it on the Github Repo as well. Then the colors, I've already mapped them out in a nice way as well. So the first thing we want to do is to get rid of all these default margin and padding. So we can say asterisk, which will target everything, and set the margin to 0, padding to 0, and box sizing, so border box. And for the images, we'll set them to a max width of 100%. And for the a tag, for the span tag, for the label, we'll set a display of inline block, because they are blocked by default, or they are inline by default rather. Then for the a tag, you can set the text decoration to none so that we can get rid of the default line that it gives. Then for the body, we can set the font family to Ubuntu sans serif. Then for the background color, we can set this to var, I think it's a neutral 300. Yeah, it's this one. So we need to now add some utility classes. So say utility classes. So utility classes are classes that are reusable. So something like the button, I think this is more like a reset. This should be right here. I think it should be here because it's a global style. So we can just set the cursor to pointer. The border should be 0. Then the font family, we'll inherit it, which is going to give us this bottom font family. The font size, I think is 1 rem by default, or set it to 1 rem. Then the background color will set it to transparent. So if we check, all the buttons now will be styled like this because it's on the global styles. Then for the utilities are, let me show you an example. You can see that we have this button class that is being reused. So we want to set a style for that particular button. So we can say btn, and before we do that, we can just even start from these buttons right here. So we can say buttons and set a margin top of like 2 rem. Set the display of flex, which will push them side by side with each other. So if I undo this, or let me get rid of this, I see that one is on top of each other. So set a display of flex, align items with the center, and justify content to set it to space between, which will push them far apart from each other. So where this comes in handy, this div right here, is that right now if I grab the previous button and I set a display of none, this next step will still remain where it is. So if I save, this will be none, but this will stay here because it's not working with this anymore. It's now working with this one and this one, but now this doesn't have any item in it. If I get rid of this, you see that this next step will get pushed back to this position right here. So I think this is more like a little hack. Instead of adding a position absolute to this and making this relative and just going through those stress, so I think we need to leave this like so for now. Or should we? Let me just comment it out for now first. Then the button will add a padding of 0.8 rem for top and bottom and 1.5 rem for the left and right. And we also add the border radius of 0.2 rem, and we'll add the background color of this accent 300, and for the color will be the neutral 200. Yeah, this one. Then we also add the transition, and we'll set it to opacity because when we hover, we need the opacity to show. So we'll say 0.2 seconds, and this will be ease. I thought I turned off this. It's off. I don't know what is happening. Then when we hover on the button, we want an opacity of 0.9. Then for this previous button, what we just do, I guess we have to just leave it. Then we'll add the background color of transparent, we'll add a color of neutral 200. Is it 200 or 150? I don't know. We'll check it out. Then transition, the color 0.2 seconds is, and for the font width, I will set it to 500, and the padding left will be 0, because remember this button affects both the next and previous, so we're just modifying it and setting the pad left to 0. Then when we hover on the previous button, we want the color to be the accent 300, and for the error messages, we'll set the color to accent 400, and the font weight will be 500, and now the margin bottom of 0.5 rem. So let's take a look at how it is right now. Okay, all right, so we're not seeing this go back button, so I think this should be 150. Yeah, so let's look at the design as well, and let's see. All right, I think we're on track on this, and now we can hover them, and you can see that these error messages are showing. Then for these progress styles right here, which I'm going to be starting with, I can see progress bar. I will target the progress bar. I'll give it a height of like 10.8 rem. I will set the background to an image. Remember that we're starting from mobile first, and the background of this progress bar is an image. So set this to URL, and so we'll go up 2 levels and go to the assets, and we'll go to mobile. So we'll change this to the desktop later on. Then for the background repeat, we'll say no repeat. For background size, we'll say cover. If from background position, we'll say center. Okay, it's not looking great, but at least it's something. Then we need to add a display of flex to these steps so that they can be stacked side by side. And I think for mobile, the title and the subtitle is not, it's not present on mobile. So we'll target the progress bar underscore steps and set a display of flex. Align items will be center. So let's check that. Okay, that's cool. Then we also want to add the justify content of center, and we also want to align the text themselves to center, and we'll add a padding of 2 rem, 1 rem, and 0 rem. So this is for the top, this 1 rem is for the left and right, and this 0 rem is for the bottom. So if we take a look at it again, it's looking nice. Then what we need to do is to target the progress bar again, and this time we'll say steps, and we'll target the ordered list. I'll set the text again to center. User select will be none, so we don't want a user to be able to select the ordered list, and the font size will be 1.3 rem. Then we'll add the cursor of pointer. And talking about adding the cursor of pointer, let's check something. If I go to the progress bar, okay, let's just leave it like so. I wanted to add the button right here, but I will leave it like so. Then for the height, we give it 40 pixels, and for the width also give it 40 pixels. And just in case you want to switch this quickly, you can just use the CSS variable by just passing like a size right here and say 40 pixels, and we'll just pass in the size right here as well, so that we can just make the changes at one place. Then for the margin, we can just say margin top 0, left and right will be like 1.063 rem. Then for the display, it will be flex, align items will be center, justify content will be center, and for the color will be the neutral color 200. Then border radius will be 50%, so that we'll have this complete circle right here. Then for the border, we'll say 2 pixels, which is basically, this one is quite thick, so say solid, and we'll say this to neutral 200, and we'll add a transition, the background color, set it to 0.2 seconds ease. All right, so let's check how it is. So now I think the next step is to add an overstate to them. So we'll say progress bar steps, and we'll target the info, and we'll still target the ordered list, and when we hover on it, we'll set the background color to assets 200, and the color will be the asset 300. And for the active one, so the one that is active, we'll still do the same thing and say active. We'll just append the active class to the ordered list and set the background color to, let me just copy this right here. So if we check now, you can see that when we hover on it, nothing is working. And why is that? So let's refresh this again. Okay. Are we not targeting any class? Progress steps. Progress steps in. Okay, this should be steps, not step. All right. So now the active class is for everything, which is fine. We'll leave it like so. Then for this text, we don't want to show the text on mobile. So can go to the index.css and grab the steps. Let's confirm if it's steps again. Okay, this is step. Just leave it like step, and we'll say the text, set it to display of none. All right, so that is being taken away. So we need to style these form steps that involves the header. So we can go back and say this should be form, let me just call this form container / header styles. So we'll target the form step and add the background color of neutral color 200. The padding will be 2.125 rem. Then also add 1.5 rem to the left and right. Then for border radius, it should be 7 rem. For the max width, we'll set it to 500 pixels. We'll also add a margin in line I'll set it to auto so that we can center it in the center of the page, and we'll add a margin top of negative 4.5 rem so that we can push it to meet up with this guy right here. All right, cool. I think we also need some spacing at the edges as well. So we'll go back, and I think that is for, if I go to the form, I'll do that for the container, and which will actually be here. So let's do it here and say container padding inline, not padding inline end of 1 for the left and right, which actually is not doing it well to the way we want. So let's see something. I think if I get rid of this, so let's go back to the form. I think we also need to wrap this inside div. So I don't know I'll call this yet, but I can just call this for now steps container. We might change it later on, but for now let's just call it steps container, and we'll do it here. So steps container, and let's add the padding inline of 1 rem, and it's working now. Okay, so let's focus on this other side of things. We can, let me even put this on top right here. Then for the form steps, we will target the title underscore title, set the margin bottom to 2 rem, and we'll target the h1 this time, set the color to accent 300, add the font weight and set it to 700, margin bottom set it to 0.7 rem, and we'll add the font size of 2 rem. Okay, cool. Nice. So for the p tag, we'll just say form step title and p. Then we'll set the color to the neutral 150. Then this section is the modifier class that we added, which is step 1. So we can just come here and say step 1 and say that step 1, and we'll target the input group, and we'll add the position of relative, or we set the position to relative rather. And the reason why we're doing this is because we'll be adding a position of absolute to this error field. So we can target the step 1 input group and the label tag, and add the margin bottom of 0.4 rem. We'll add a color and we'll set it to accent 300. We'll add the font width, we'll set it to 400. And for the inputs, we can just say step 1 input group, and the individual input, we'll add the width of 100%. Also had the height of 39 pixels. Set a border of 5 rem, 0.5 rem, and we'll also add a border. So this is border radius, I don't know why I call that border, and we'll add a border of 1.5 pixels solid, and we'll add a neutral 500, 350, and we'll also add the margin bottom of a 1.3 rem, and we'll also set the outline to none. Then the font family will be inherit, which we would have added on the global styles, but it's fine. Then we'll add the padding left of 1 rem, so that when we start typing, we can give this like from here to here is the 1 rem padding. Okay, it's coming together. Then I think finally we just need to style these placeholders, and what else? Okay, we still need to style these buttons as well. So you can say step 1 input group, and we'll mark the placeholder and set the color to the neutral 400. Then we'll also target the step 1 again, and we'll target the error message MSG, and we set the position to absolute. We'll set the right to 0 so that this will go to the right, and we'll add a font weight of 500. Also set a font size to 0.9 rem, and we'll add the margin bottom 0. And this doesn't, let me comment this out. Okay, so this doesn't really do anything, so we can just get rid of it. All right, cool. I think this works for the mobile. Then on bigger screens, let me just get rid of this. It's not looking nice at all. So we can just add the media query right here. So we say media queries. So for the media queries, you can see add media, and we say main width. I will set this to 75 rem, which is 1200 pixels, and we'll grab the container, set the width to 900 pixels. We'll add the margin inline to auto. Also give it a padding of 1.5 rem. We'll add a background color and set it to the, let's do 200. Yeah, so we'll say neutral 200, and also add the border radius, set it to 0.7 rem. All right, it's looking good. All right, so we'll target the form container, and again, let me just go back to the form so that you know what we're doing. So this is what we are styling right here. So we can target the form container and set it to display grid. Place items should be center. I'll give it a height of 100 VH, so that whatever happens, it just stays at this 100 viewport height at all times. Then we need to now push this stuff to this side, and this should be at the right side. So we'll bring in that display grid class, and we'll add a display of grid. The grid template columns will be 1 FR, 2 FR. So we want this one to have a lower fraction and this to have a higher fraction. And we'll add a column gap of 3 rem. I'll also add set the height to 100% of each container. So if we look now, you can see these are stacking together side by side, but it's still not looking nice as we want. So we'll target the progress bar this time, which is this side, and say progress bar, and set the background image to the desktop one. So say source assets and pg side desktop. I'll set the background repeat to no repeat. Background size should be cover. Then the background position should be center. Then the height should be 100%. So for the border radius, we'll still set this to 0.7 rem to align with what we've added in the container. Then we give it a width of 250 pixels, and we'll give it a height of 500 pixels. So let's see what we have so far. Okay, it's coming together. It's not there yet, but it's coming together. Then we also need to change this from display flex to display block. So we can say progress bar steps, change this back to display block, should take it back to its original state, and we'll target the progress bar info, and we'll set the width to 100%. The display will be flex, and add the margin bottom of 2 rem. All right, then also need to target the progress bar info and ordered list and set the margin to 0, and we'll target the progress step text, and this time we'll display it and set it to block. The color will be the neutral 200. Then the margin left will be 1 rem, and the text align will be left. All right, so we need to style all this. So we can set this and say progress bar step text, and for the H5, we set the text transform to uppercase. We'll add the font weight to lighter, and we'll also set the font size to 0.8 rem, which is this right here. Then for the span, so we can say span, and we'll add a text transform of uppercase as well. Also add the font weight of 500, and we'll give it a font size of 1 rem so that it will be bigger than the original one. Okay, cool. So the progress bar is good. So if we look at the design now, you can see here for this part it's aligned. So we only have issues with these form steps, which is going up for some weird reasons. So we can just say form step, set a max width of 100%. Then we'll give it a background color of transparent so that we'll get rid of this white background, and add a border radius 0. Also get rid of the padding and the margin, or rather, since we'll still need margin to push it down, I don't know what the margin was earlier, so let's quickly check. Okay, margin top was this, so can I just set the margin top to 0. Since we're working with that, we just have to just add a margin top of 2 rem, which will push it down. Yeah, and we'll set the padding right to 3 rem so that it's going to push it from here to like so. So if we check the mobile view and we come to desktop, let me close this out. All right, it's looking nice. So let's move on to the next step, which is this select your plan. So we'll go to components and create it. So we say select plan.jsx, and let's reduce this back to the mobile side of things. So leave it like so. And this video is getting extremely long, so I might not be working as close to this design as I would love to. But anyways, let's just see how it goes. I'll try my best to still come here and make reference as much as I can. So for this, we'll give this a class of form step, which is the utility class we've already created, and we'll give this a modifier of step 2. And right here we just need to pass in the header, and this will be, the title will be select your plan. Then the subtitle, what am I doing? Subtitle will be, I go to the constants, can just copy it from here, paste it right here. Then underneath it, we'll have a div and call these plans. Inside this div, we'll bring in the error message that we've already started, but we'll call this select a plan. And under this, we'll create another div. We'll call this one display flex, so that we can be able to push this side by side, and we'll just map over the plans on the constant file. So we're just mapping over each plans right here. So we'll map over it and get the plan and give this a label, and this won't have any for, we don't need this one here. We need to give this a key, and this will be the plan dot, what should we use now? You know, for this I'm going to just save this. Okay, this is not okay, so I'll pass in the index right here, and the key will just be the index. Then for the class, what we'll do is I'm going to use backticks, and this should be inside curly brackets, and the class will be plan, but I just want to set the default one to this first one. So I can do that by saying plan dot name, and if the name is equals to, we'll use this name right here, so say arcade. Then we want to add the active class, then else we don't want to do anything. Like I said, when we get to the functionality side of things, this right here will be dynamic. Inside this label, we'll pass in the input, and this will be a type of radio, so we're going to be using radio, and the name will be plan selection. And we also need to add a default checked, so we need this to be checked by default. We'll say plan.name if it's equals to what, same arcade like we done earlier on. Then inside this input, underneath the input, we'll bring in a div called flex, and inside this div we'll pass in the image, which will be plan.image, and this will be plan.name, and we'll also pass in another, or bring in another div with a class of plan underscore info to hold all these informations. Then just for now, we'll just work with, I think we should work with yearly because it has these 2 months free stuff. So we'll say h4, and we'll say plan dot name, bring in a span tag, and say this one should be plan dot yearly price, and we'll say slash year, and we'll add a $sign on the front of this. And for this last one, which is like a trial, give this a class of trial, set this to plan.trial. So let's save and see what we have so far. If I close this, I can just come underneath and just pass in the footer right here as well. So let me bring this in, and we can go back to the form. And what I will do is I will just comment this out as well as this, and pass in the select plan. So if we preview it now, you can see most of all the styles are already working for us. So you can see that we can now check between them, and this select plan is coming as it should. All right, so what we need to do is to add this toggle right here, this toggle button, and I wanted to do it with React, but you can still achieve this with CSS. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the select plan. Underneath this div, so underneath this one, we just say price toggle switch, and we'll create a div. We'll give this a class of toggle switch, and we'll use a field set. And the field set is basically used to just group things together. And in our case, we just want to group this monthly and yearly switch or input buttons together. So inside this field set, I think we have done something similar, but we'll just work with label for here. So we can say, give this a class of toggle, and then we can add an area label. I can say this is price toggle. Again, I can set the row to radio group. So basically the role of this is to group the two radio buttons together, and this is good for just accessibility purpose. So inside this field set now, we'll create a label tag, and this will be for, first one will be for the month, and we'll set this to monthly. Then we can set, create a div. So this div will be like a wrapper. So say class name, get rid of this. So this will be like a wrapper, or let's just call it toggle wrapper. So this is like a wrapper that is wrapping the two radio buttons. So the first radio button will be the input, and this will be type radio, and the name we can call this, let's just call this I think this is more like a theme switcher. I think we'll just stick with that. So but you can call this what you want, and make sure the ID matches. So this will be for month to match. This will create for yearly in a bit, and I'll hold shift alt and the down arrow key, and this will be for the year. I also need to add 2 span tags to basically, and one will be for the background, which is this background you're seeing, and this one will be for the button itself. So underneath this, we'll create a span and add an area of hidden. I'll set it to true. Then inside this span tag, it will be empty, but we also need to add the class and set this to toggle. Let's go background. Copy this down again 2 more times, and this will be for the button. And lastly, we'll just copy this one here and bring it here and change this to year, change this to yearly. All right, so if we take a good at it now, you can see that since this ID is attached or is the same as this HTML4, we can now toggle between the monthly and the yearly. Okay, cool. So we can head back to our CSS and we'll close this one out for now. Here we can say step 2. I'll grab the step 2 class. I'll grab the plans and each of the plan. So remember, so we go to select plan, say what? Step 2 plans, and we're grabbing each plan. Then we'll set the display to flex, align items, be center, justify content will be flex start. So let's see what we want right here. So this is basically we're styling each of the plan right now, not the entire stuff. We're styling each plan. So we can also add a border. So set the border to be 1 pixel solid. Then we'll say 350. What will be the neutral color? I didn't know why this is in place, so let's try again. 350. We'll also add a padding. So we'll set this to 1.2 rem for the top and bottom. Then left and right, you can just set it to 1 rem. Then also add a border radius of 0.5 rem and also add the transition of all 0.2 seconds is. So if we check it now, you can see that the borders are coming in. Then what we want to do is to stack them. So if we go back to the design, there are spaces underneath which we'll add, but we want to stack these two side by side, the image and this content. So we can do that by saying step 2 plans, and we'll target the flex. I say display flex, align items, we'll set it to center, justify content will remain at flex start. I think flex start is the default, but we'll leave it like so. Then we'll also add a gap of 0.9 rem. So if we check, you can see now it's adding a gap of 0.9 rem. So in order for us to add the spacing to this, we can just target the step 2 plans and each of the plan, but we won't target the last one. So I'm basically saying target each plan except the last child, and we'll add a margin bottom of 1 rem. So it's going to add margin bottom to this, but it's not going to add to the last one, because we'll manually add margin bottom to this toggle switcher right here, or toggle theme right here. Then what we need to do next is to style this. So we can say step 2 plans, say plan underscore info, and we want to target the h4, give it a color of set it to the neutral 300. Is it neutral 300? Let me check. Okay, it's the accent 300. So say asset 300. Then we'll give it a font weight of 700. Also add a font size of 1 rem. Always just bump this a bit. And we'll add a margin bottom of 0.3 rem. So if you check now, you see this is coming nice. So for the span, and the span, when I'm talking about a span, I mean the price. So step 2, plans, say plan info, target the span, and we'll give it a color of neutral 150. We'll add a font size of 0.9 rem. We'll add the margin bottom of 3.3 rem. Then we'll copy this, and for the trial, we'll give it a color of the accent 300. Okay, cool. We also need to add an overstate when we over on them, because you can see this purplish line that's showing. So it's supposed to be when we over on them, and there are some overstates right here. So this is what it is right here. So we can do that by targeting the step 2 plus the plans, and each of the plan will add an overstate to it. I'll set the border color because we've already added a border. So we just set the color to the asset 350. I'll set the background color to the neutral 300. And for the active one, which is the arcade, so we'll say step 2 plans and plan.active. We'll just copy this as well, paste it right here. So let's check. All right, so this one is the active one. So now we want to start styling all this. And before we start styling this part, we want to get rid of this what should I call it now, this check state, and we can just do it directly from, I think we're doing it from here. Yeah, we can just come here and say the style, and we just set the display, just set it to none. So let's check. Okay, that stuff is gone. So we can come right here and start styling the toggle switch or whatever you want to call it. So you can just call it toggle switch. Let's just call it that. If I can spell switch very well. So we'll set a step 2 and target the plans and toggle underscore switch. And the first thing we'll do is to set the user select to none, so that users can be able to select it, which is this one. Then we copy this, and I guess I spelled this wrong. So copy this class, paste it right here, and we'll target the input with a type radio. What we want to do is for the margin, we'll set the top to 0. We'll add a negative 2 pixels to the right. Then for the bottom, we'll still set it to 0 and a negative 2 pixels to the left, which basically means we can just do this. So I didn't know why I just did this, but it's still the same thing like so. So this will be for top and bottom. This will be for the left and right. So we'll also add an opacity and set it to 0. I will add a width of 27 pixels and a height of 24 pixels, and also give this a cursor of pointer. So it's there, but you can't see it because we've set the opacity to 0. So what we want to do now is we'll grab this class again and we'll paste it here, and this time we'll target the toggle class. So let's come right here and look for that toggle class, which is this feed set. And what we'll do right here is to add a display of flex. Remember, this feed set is like a wrapper that is grouping this entire stuff, which is the month and the year. So basically we're basically pushing this and this side by side. So set the align items to flex start this time, not center. Then for the justify content, we want to center them in the middle, as you can see now. Then we're still adding more styles. We'll give this a margin, and we'll set this to 2rem and add set the rest to 0 so that it just affects the top. Or you know what, let's just set the top and bottom to 2rem, then we'll set the left and right to 0. Let's see what happens. Also give this a padding of 1.2rem. Also add a border radius of 5.5rem. Also set the border to none. And lastly, we'll set the background color to the neutral 300. So let's see. So nothing is showing, which is still what we want because the opacity is still set to 0. So what we want to do now is to target the wrapper. So where is it? So we can copy this one and paste it right here, and we can just say toggle underscore wrapper, and basically the wrapper is the one holding all this together. So set the position to relative because we'll be adding absolute position into the background and to the button. So to this toggle background and to this toggle button. So we'll set a height of 25 pixels and add a margin, and the margin top and bottom should be 0, but the left and right should be 1.5rem. So if we check now, you can see it's adding the height of 25 pixels, even though we can't see it right now, but I'm just going to add that class so that it doesn't look as if we're working with an invisible element. So let me just copy all this, and I guess I copied. Okay, we don't need this one. So we can now target the toggle background. I'll set the background color to the accent color 300. I'll also add a position of absolute. I think it should be on the top. Then we'll add a width of 100%, same thing as the height of 100% as well of its parent. Then we'll set the top to 0, the left should be 0, and for the border radius let's just do let's still do 0.5 rem to see if that works. So now you can see it's coming through. But if we check the design, I think it's a complete peeled shape. So let's try 5 rem if it's give us that. Okay, I think it's giving us that. So this is the background, as you can see, and we want the pointer event to be none so that we can easily toggle between the yearly and the monthly where we add the toggle button, which we will do right now. So for the toggle button, we can just say toggle underscore button, and again we'll set the position to absolute. We'll give it a left of 4 pixels, also add a top of 3 pixels, and for the width and the height, which is basically this white stuff right here, so we can set a width to let's try 18 pixels. Height should be the same thing as well, but that radius will be 50% to have that full pitch circle, and we'll give it a background color of the white color, and it should be the neutral 300. So let's check. Nice, cool. And we also want to add a transition so that when we are toggling between it, it should move in a smooth form. So we set this to like 250 milliseconds ease in out. All right, I think it's looking nice. It's looking like the design. Yeah. Okay, so what we want to do now is when we click on this yearly, we want to move this button some certain pixels. So the way to achieve that is we can copy this right here and paste it here and say we'll target the year ID, which is this year ID, and we'll say if it's checked, then we want to do something. So we use this tilde sign and just grab the next sibling, which is this button right here, and we set the left to 25 pixels. So hopefully if we test it now, you can see that it's moving and it's working when we are doing it with both of them. Okay, not bad. Then we also need to add a class of fade. We'll set the color to the neutral 150. So this fade class is not right here. We'll add it later when we get to the functionality side of things. But what this fade will do is you can see that this monthly and yearly are highlighted in a black color. But if you check the design, if for a monthly, the yearly is faded, and if for our yearly, it's the monthly will be faded. So we'll achieve that later on when we start toggling, and these right here are dynamic. All right, cool. So for the desktop side of things, I think this should be straightforward. So let me see. Yeah, I think so. So what we do is come right here, and underneath this, we can say step 2. I will just target the step 2, the plans and the flex class. We set it back to display of block, set the width to 100%. Then for the step 2, we'll target the plants. And should we need to target the plants, or do we need to target the plants? Okay, we just want to push them side by side. This is what we want. So you can say display flex. Or I'm just thinking of something. Instead of using display flex, I think since it's in a grid-like format, we can just use grid. I think it will be better that way. So let me just change this to grid, and we'll change this to grid. I'll say display grid. Grid template columns will be repeat 3f 3 columns, 1 fraction each, so that they will be even. And we'll also add a column gap of 1 rem. And if you are wondering why I'm using column gap instead of gap, so gap adds, if you just use gap like so, it adds to both the vertical and the horizontal. But column gap just adds to each side. So it just adds to this side. It doesn't add to the bottom class. Talking about adding to the bottom class, we need to get rid of this bottom. We can do that by just, I think we can just grab that class right here. And now I'm thinking we have just typed it out. So go back to this, paste this here, and change this to 0. And getting rid of that. And for the image, we can see step 2, plans and plan. We'll grab the image, set it to margin right of 0 and margin bottom of 2 rem, so that we can have some breathing room underneath. Alright, cool. So I guess we are done with the second step. So let's preview it on mobile and hope nothing breaks. Yeah, it's fine. And I just realized we don't need a margin right here because we didn't even add it in mobile. So get rid of that. Okay, cool. So the next step is the add-ons. So this step right here. So we can just call this add-ons.gsx, and this will be rfce. Get rid of this one. And what we'll do right here is, let me first of all go to the form and make sure all these are commented out. I'll bring in the add-ons. If you check now, can come back right here, we'll have this. All right, so the first thing to do is to add a class of form step. So you're already getting the pattern now. So this will be step 3, and the first thing to do is to add the header. So the header will be, sorry, this should not be a class name, this should be title. If we can get it from constants, so I set this to this one, paste it here, then the subtitle will be this one. Okay, then underneath we'll still have the footer, so I just pass in this footer right here, and here we just set this to a div with a class of add-ons. Inside that div, we'll pass in the error message that says pick and add-on. save this and create another div. This time we give it a class of add-on, and we'll map over each add-ons and say for each add-on, what we'll do is to, let me bring in a div and save this, and also pass in index here. So the key will be the index, then inside the div we'll do the same thing we did on the previous step. So we'll say label, and we don't need a HTML4. And instead, I think this should be, the label should be the main stuff if we want to follow what we did. Yeah, let's just do that. So this will be key index. Inside the label, we'll say give this a class of add on info, then we'll append the flex, which means we need to just copy this class here, paste it here. Okay, and inside this div we'll have an input with a type of checkbox, and the name, we'll set the name to like service. So if we want to follow, this one is like the first one is online service, or instead of using service we can just use add-ons as well. Then underneath it we'll have another div, and this will be h4. This will be the add-on title. Forgetting to give this a class, so we'll give this a class of add on text, and this will be the add-on text. All right, cool. I'm just having a rethink. Let me know if it's best practice to use the label. I think it's fine to use the label as the wrapper instead of just appending a div every time. So you let me know, or you can use what feels it's following best practices. I think this is following best practice. So underneath this one, or outside this rather, we will create another div. We'll call this price, and we'll just pass in the span, and this will be the add-on monthly price, which will have $sign and a plus icon to it, just like this one. All right, cool. I think that's that for the JSX. So if we check, this is how it looks. So if we refresh, all these errors should be gone. All right, so we need to start styling this. So we can go to the index of CSS, and again come right here and say step 3, and we'll say add. I hope I'm spelling this right. I will grab the add-on info, which is this one's. So we'll add flex to it so that this will be at the left. This will be placed side to this. So we say display flex. Also add an align items of center. We set the justify content to space between. So if we look at it now, see that this is right here and this is right here. Then we will set the border radius. Or before we do border radius, let's just do for the border, we set it to 1 pixel solid. Color should be the neutral 350. Also add the padding of 1.2 rem to the top and bottom, and 1 rem to the left and right. Also add the border radius of 0.5 rem, and we'll add the transition of 0.2 seconds is. So let's take a look at it. Nice. So we still repeat the same pattern we did for the last one. So I can just okay, no need to just copy. Let me just still write it out so that we don't get lazy. So we say add on info, and we'll target all the child except the last one. Set the margin bottom to 1 rem, like so. Then we need this checkbox to be here, then push this to the right. So we can do that by grabbing the add-ons and the add-on info underscore flex, which is this one right here. Then we can add a display of flex. Align items should be center. Then justify content should be flex start. And we'll add a gap of 0.9 rem. It should be 9, not 8. Okay. All right, so everything is looking fine. We just need to style the heading one and this other stuffs. But before we do that, let's just add some hover states. So we can say when we hover on it, so when we hover on the info, and also we can just say if that info is still active. So we can say info dot active. So in both cases, we'll set the border color to the accent 350 and the background color to the neutral 300. So let's check. All right, so there's no active states, but this is how it's going to look if a certain add-on is active. So now for this checkbox, let's just style it a bit. So we can say add-ons, each of the add-on, and we'll target the inputs with a type of checkbox. Set the width to 19 pixels, the height to 19 pixels, so that it should be a bit bigger. Then for the H4 and the P tag, you can just target it by copying these two and appending the text to this. Target the H4 and say give it a color of accent 300. Also add the font weight of 700. Then we'll give it a font size of 1.1 rem. 1.1 rem. Also add the margin bottom of 0.3 rem. All right, so for the P tag, I'll copy this and we just add a color of the neutral 150. So if we check now, everything should look like the design, yeah, except this span stuff right here, which we'll just do right now. So we can say add-ons, where is it? I'll say add-on info, then the span, and set the color to the accent 350. We'll set the font weight to like 500. Then I'll set the font size to 0.9 rem. So let's see. Okay, it's looking nice, but we just need to append this stuff right here. I just noticed I didn't add it, so we can just do slash. We just do here because it's going to be dynamic later on. So okay, this works fine. And for the desktop, the mobile and desktop are quite the same. Yeah. So if we're looking on desktop, we don't need to do anything because it's basically the same as the mobile. Okay, so I think we can go back and work on the next step, which is the what is it called? Yeah. So we're almost done. This finishing up section right here. So we can go back to the components and say finishing up dots. Am I spelling this correctly? Okay, yeah. JSX. Say RFCE. I'll go to the form. Make sure this is commented out and bring in the finishing up components and comment this out as well. So we can save this. And if we check, yeah, this is all what. So the same way we add the class of form step. This should be together, and this should be step 4. And inside this, we'll bring in the header, which says title. I think the title says finishing up. We might look at the other one later. And the subtitle says go to the constants file. So double check everything, go back, paste this right here. Okay, cool. Then we also need to bring in the footer component. So we'll bring this right here. So if we look at it, we have the header and the footer. So next up, we just need to style this stuff right here. So I don't know if you can notice, if you can see this, but we'll have like a subtle background right here that has some border radius. Then for the mobile, let's see if it's different. So for the mobile, it's fairly the same. So if we do for this mobile, if we start for the mobile, we don't need to do much on the desktop. So what we'll do is to create the GXS we need. So I'll call this div confirm steps. Then we'll create another div inside and we'll give it a class of flex and another class called confirm plan. And this will also have another div called plan, which is going to have an h4 that says arcade yearly. Okay, this says monthly, but it still depends. Yeah, there's still month and year, depending on what you choose. So I've forgotten how the demo looked like. If okay, yeah, I know there was for yearly and monthly, because this option right here will be dynamic. So we'll start with yearly and add a button and say this will be change and this will be class, call this change. So I would have used an icon link, but using an icon link will just make me go back to the root folder or the home page. So button will make it easier. Underneath this plan div, create a span tag with a class plan price, and this will be, let's just say it's the $9 that was there per since it's here, let's just work with yearly. Then underneath it will just map over the finishing of data, and this will be item. Let's bring this in, and this time we use the div, and this will be index. So the key will be index, and the class name will be confirm add-on, and we'll create another div with a class of flex. So we have two flex right here, so it's not going to contradict because the parent class are quite different. So we know how we're going to target each and every one of them. So inside this flex, or inside this div right here, we'll bring in an h1 h4 with the item title and the span. That's going to have the item dot yearly price because we're working with years, and this will be slash y arrow. I also need to append the plus icon, or the plus symbol and the dollar symbol. And underneath this div, we'll create another div called flex and another one called total. So what this div is for this section right here. So the flex is to push them side by side. Then we also need another div inside, so call this one the total price. We might not even, I don't think we might need this, so let me just get rid of this flex because we can just use this total to achieve that. Then inside this we'll say total per year. So we'll save this, and outside the div we'll bring in the span tag, and we'll say this should be plus $12 yearly. So if we check now, this is how it looks, and we're having an error. Let's refresh this again. Okay, that's gone. So for this, we just need to start styling this. So we can now style it. So go back and go to our global, here's our CSS file. So say index of CSS. Make sure you are not inside this media query. Say this should be step 4, and target the step 4. Say confirm steps, and add a background color. Set it to that subtle bluish color, which is a neutral 300. Then we set the back, add a padding of 1.2 rem to the top and bottom, and 1 rem to the left and right. Then we'll give it a border radius of 0.5 rem and the margin bottom of 2 rem. So you can see that subtle color right here. Then we target the step 4 and target the flex and set the display to flex. And basically now what we're doing is, okay, now I see why this is useful. We might bring the flex back here because we're just targeting all the flex because they are basically doing the same thing. So everything will be going side by side. So this right here will be here, so we need this to be here as well because of this. So I think we'll go back, bring this back. So this is what happens when you try to do stuff at the top of your head. So let's just check this back. All right, so everything is okay. Now we can now add line item center, and justify content space between. So everything now should be side by side, which is cool. All right, so underneath this now, we can start targeting more niche stuff like say step 4 and confirm steps, and the confirm plan. Let me confirm, because at this point, I'm not going to lie, my head is already full with all these class names. So confirm plan, which is holding. What is it holding again? Arcade yearly and this. Okay, so what we want to do is to well, first of all, add a margin bottom of like 1.5 rem. I'll set the position to relative, because we'll be adding some pseudo classes afterwards. And basically the pseudo class is just this underline right here, which you can do with text underline, but text underline won't look like how this one is. So we can save this. If we look at it, no major difference, just took this stuff and added margin bottom to it. So we can now say, okay, for the step 4, confirm steps and the confirm plan, see after pseudo class, and the content should be empty. So for this after pseudo class to work, this content has to be empty or something, so it's needed. Then we'll set the position to absolute. We'll set the bottom to 0.7. It should be negative number. Then we'll set the width to 100%. The height should be 1.5 pixel. And the background color, I think it's not on the color, so we'll just do it ourselves. So say E6A6A6. I think there should be another 6 here. And I think that's about that. Let's check. All right, so it's adding this line right here. So I'm sorry if I refer to this is what I actually meant. So we can just even do this right here, and let's just style this entire stuff. So we can say step 4, confirm steps, the plan, each of the plan, say h4. We target the h4 and set the transform, text transform to capitalize, and we'll save this. Okay, then we'll target this again, paste it here, and we'll also paste it again, but this time we'll get rid of the plan and target the confirm plan and the plan price, and give all of them a color of this accent 300, and add a font weight of 700. So if we check now, it's adding the color to this h4, and it's supposed to add it to this plan price, confirm plan price. So let's check class, what is it, confirm plan price. Okay, yeah, so it's adding it to this and to this, right? Okay, so I'm just thinking about something. Since this is $9, I guess we need to change this to 90, not 9, since we're working with here. And we can go back and target the step 4, confirm steps, and the confirm add-on, confirm add-on, and this time we'll grab everything except the last child and add a margin bottom of 1 rem. So if we check, it's adding the margin bottom to each of the tags. So now we can now style each of them the way we want. So we can copy this, paste this here, pen the H4 and add a color of neutral 150 and set the font width to 400. Then for the step 4, we can grab the change, which is this class now, and let's try if this text decoration will work. I think it's going to work, and if it works, okay, so why did I not use that when I was doing it? So we can just still set the color to neutral 150, and let's add a margin top as well because it's close to the heading. All right, and let's make it bold as well, so say font weight 500. So when we hover on it, let's check if there's an overstate. I'm very sure there should be an overstate. Yeah, so we can say transition color 0.2 seconds is in, say step 4, change on hover. I say the color should be the accent 350. All right, then for the rest side of things, we can copy this and paste it here, and also append the span and add a color. Let's check before we do that. Let's see what we are doing. Okay, it's correct. So we can say color should be the accent 300, then we'll add a font width of 500 to all these colors right here. So let's see how it looks on the design. So I think this was not there, this customizable profile, but it's not bad. You can still leave it like so because it's going to be dynamic as well. Then we can just grab the step 4 and the total and the H4, set the color to neutral 150. So let's see. Okay, then for this has, I think the color is quite different. Yeah, it's quite different. So we can set this to step 4 total span. The color should be the same 350, which is the same as this one, but this one is when we hover. Okay, so we'll set the font weight to 700 and we'll give it a higher font size of like 1.1 rem. Okay, that's not bad. I think it's looking nice. Then on desktop we don't have to do anything because there's actually nothing to be done. All right, then we also need to, maybe we'll do this on the next video. This confirm button is supposed to be here, but like I said, we'll start out on the next video. Then I think final stuff is this thank you page right here. So what we'll do is create the thank you page by going to this component and say thank you dot gsx crafc and go to the form, comment this out, bring this, say thank you, and we'll comment this out as well. So we can now go to the thank you and let's see how it looks. Okay, so how does it look on mobile? All right, so we can say This should also have the form step as well, and class thank you. And for this one, we'll have a div with the class of thank you. Let's call this thank you content. And the first thing there is the image, so bring in the image, which means we have to import that image, and we'll call it import thank you img from go up to level assets, and I think it's called icon thank you svg. I hope that's the one, and pass in the thank you image right here. You'll see this should be thank you. So let's check. Okay, so image is coming through. Then still inside this thank you content, we'll bring in an issue that says thank you, exclamation mark. Let's see. Yeah, only that this one is lowercase. Then for the p tag, I think we have to type this out because I don't have this copied. So thanks for confirming your subscription. For confirming your subscription. Didn't spell confirm very well. So exclamation mark. We hope you have fun using our platform. So we hope you have fun using our platform. This is still not correct. Okay, now it's correct. So if you ever need support, please feel free to email us at support. Okay. Please feel free email us at support. I think okay, let's check if there's any mistake. We'll make it, so we'll correct it rather. Gaming.com. I guess that's how it looks. Yeah. Then we just add a full stop right here. And that's it for the JXX. So to style this, we just go back to our index and say thank you, and we'll grab the thank you class, and we'll just center everything. Center, and for the image, we'll say thank you image. Set the width to 60 pixels. The height should be 60 pixels as well. Then we'll add the margin bottom of 1 rem. Okay. Then we'll also grab the thank you h2. Then we'll give it a color of asset 300. We'll add the margin bottom of 0.5 rem. That is that for the h2, and for the p tag, we'll give it a line height of 1.4. Also give it a color of neutral 150. Yeah. Okay, that's how it looks. Let's see how it looks on mobile. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for desktop, okay, we need to push this down. So all we do is to come right here, say thank you. I will grab the thank you class and just say, I will give it a width of like 500 pixels so that it doesn't go beyond that width, and set the margin in line to auto. We also add display of flex, set the align items to center, justify content to center. Let's see how it is. Okay, nothing's happening. Then let's just try and give this like a height of like 80%, so that before we save this, it's going to push it 80% downwards. And for the padding, should we leave it like so? Okay, let's just add a padding right of like 2 rem. Let's see. Okay, that did that do anything? Oh, I didn't save it earlier on. That didn't do anything, so let's just get rid of it. So let's check on mobile again. All right, looking fine. All right, guys, so that's the end of this first part of the two-part series that we'll be working on, and I'll try to release the other parts in a week's time because I upload every week. So by this time next week you should see the other parts. But again, if you are watching this in the future, the next video will be what is showing right now on the screen. Till next week, guys.